All right. Hello, whoever is here. Just getting things started up here on Friday night. You know the drill. For all of you who are here, you can support the channel by going right there. You can also leave a super like if you want us to get to your question in a little bit. You could subscribe or whatever YouTube wants you to do. This is the bigger one. Please do that. Hope you're having a good weekend. I'm going to go ahead and get started. As always, you can leave a comment. Uh, Den is here helping me out with moderation. And if he writes a comment if he leaves a comment, he'll sign it with his name. But feel free to leave a comment, everybody. And we are going to. Oh, I was just telling Den a second ago, I didn't realize how many of you were like handing out gift subscriptions to the YouTube channel last week. I thought it was like one person. It turned out several of you were giving several gift subscriptions out, but that is kind of neat. And I believe if you are watching this on YouTube and you are a member, you can now use an emoji of my face. I don't know what you're going to do with that, but apparently it's an option, and there's a couple other logos you could use in there as well. Anyway, let's get started tonight by talking about prayer in school, because I don't think this is that complicated of a question. If I ask you, are you allowed to pray in public school? The answer is, well, yeah, anyone can pray privately. Teachers can pray privately. Students have a little more leeway with that stuff. Really, the only thing you can't have is like school sponsored prayer or prayer shoved down the throats of everybody, no matter who's doing it. And there are decades of legal precedent for this. There are Supreme Court decisions that have uh, said you can't have school sponsored prayers. Like, it's obvious. It should be obvious. And yet, there is an elementary school in Oklahoma. It looks like Prague Elementary School. I believe it's pronounced Prague Elementary School. Not only did they allow daily Christian prayers to be recited over the morning announcements, like over the intercom for the entire school, they let the kids do the praying over the intercom, and then they bragged about it online, which is really messed up. I'm going to show you some of these posts that they put on Facebook here. Check this out. I'm hiding the kids on purpose, but you could see from their Facebook page, like, these kids asked, whoops, let me do that again, asked to pray for our school this morning. And it's like two random kids. And here's another one. These three boys asked to pray for our school today. These kids on Halloween asked to pray over our school this morning. These kids asked if they could pray for our school today. And it's like, it doesn't matter what those kids supposedly wanted. And you all know the thing kids want more than anything else is for the ability to talk to other 6-year-olds about Jesus, apparently. But like, it is messed up that the school allowed them to use the morning announcements to pray and force everyone in the school to listen to that stuff. That's weird. It's really weird that they're then promoting all that on social media as if these kids did something worthy of praise. No, they didn't. They just wasted everyone's time for like a couple minutes longer than usual. So there's all sorts of weirdness happening here that absolutely should not be happening. And maybe, benefit of the doubt here, maybe the school thought it's okay that we allowed the kids to say these prayers because the kids requested it. We weren't making them do it. They asked us if they could do it. But, like, come on, the only reason kids would ever make that request is because the school made it clear that praying to Jesus over the intercom was okay, and that they would like get famous on Facebook for the handful of people who read that page. You know what I mean? Like, these kids aren't doing that on their own. And even so, why the hell is the school saying yes? All of this is still school sponsored prayer. And everyone should know that, because if a Muslim kid asked for the same privilege, you know they would say no. If an atheist or a Satanist or what have you, any non Christian asked for the same opportunity, I feel like the school would not say, well, have at it. You can just take over the intercom for a while. So this all happened for over the course of several weeks at least. And the Freedom from Religion Foundation eventually wrote a letter to the school district. And that's all well and good. I want to show you that, their letter. I'm going to pull this up here. I thought I had it up. Where did it go? Here it is. So this is the letter from the Freedom from Religion Foundation about all this. And here's what attorney Chris Line wrote. It is extremely concerning that the district not only hosts daily prayers as part of Rise and Shine, like their morning announcements, but that it then posts the full name and photos of students who led the prayer so that they can receive accolades from the community for adhering to the majoritarian religious belief. The district must cease hosting daily prayers and promoting religious worship through its official communication channels immediately. So, yeah, that's what the school should do. Notice what FFRF is doing here. They're not saying we're going to sue the hell out of you. They're saying you're making a mistake. It's egregious. Like, you're not just allowing the prayers, you're like promoting it. So stop now before things get worse. And they said in that letter, like, the Supreme Court is on our side with this. It's unconstitutional. Public schools can't host prayers even if students are the ones delivering them. We know that because it's not allowed at high school graduations either. So it's such an obvious call that the district shouldn't be doing this that incredibly, the district sent back a letter. And check this out. This was a couple of weeks ago. This is from their attorney. And this is the part that matters, this second paragraph. The district agrees that the posts and prayer are inappropriate for a public school district. It will ensure neither occurs in the future and will delete any district social media posts referencing the same. So, great. Like, that's exactly what should have happened. FFRF warned them what they were doing was illegal. The district said, "Oh, didn't know that. Okay, we respect what you were saying. We know it's illegal. We will stop doing it." And that should be the end of the story. That's exactly what you hope will happen. That was from the district's attorney, Justin Clyburn. And by the way, all those social media posts were deleted. And so what I was showing you earlier, those were screenshots for a reason because they're no longer up on Facebook. But here's where the story takes another weird turn because, of course, this is Oklahoma. This is a state where they have an elected official, a superintendent of public instruction, whose name is Ryan Walters, who also happens to be a Christian nationalist. I'm going to show you something that Ryan Walters did in response to all this, but in case you don't know the name, this is the guy who has been the driving force in getting state officials to approve the nation's first ever religious charter school, in this case Catholic. That's already resulted in a major lawsuit, which I've talked about before. Ryan Walters approved the use of PragerU materials in public school classrooms, and that's just conservative propaganda. Ryan Walters claims the Tulsa Race Massacre, which ought to be a pretty big deal in Oklahoma in history class. He said the Tulsa Race Massacre had nothing to do with race. He has also claimed falsely, obviously, that Joe Biden wants to destroy our Christian faith. Ryan Walters formed a faith community to examine prayer in public schools. And guess what? That committee, which was full of conservative Christians, said, you know what we should do? We should put the 10 Commandments in every classroom. So that's Ryan Walters for you. Just, I think, a month or two ago, he actually sent out to teachers across the state, public school teachers across the state, a sample prayer they could use on behalf of the people in Israel, and definitely not the innocent Palestinians living in the Gaza Strip. He said, here's a prayer you could say for the Israelis, as if that's his role, as if that's what he should be doing. So, in response to the district saying, you're right, FFRF, we're not going to pray in schools anymore, Ryan Walters put out a video. I'm going to play that video for you right now so you could see all this. Let me show you that, and then we'll talk about what he said.
Today we see Prague Public Schools backing down to a radical atheist group. You know, we're going to continue to fight for religious liberty and religious freedom here in the state of Oklahoma. What we've seen as a group that's funded by George Soros, that is atheist, that is from out of state, has come in and targeted children that are initiating prayer in Prague public schools. But, just as bad, we have Prague public schools bowing down to these bullies and telling their students that they're not going to allow them to initiate prayer anymore. It's outrageous. We have to take a stand for our students' freedom of religion, their freedom to express their religious beliefs, no matter what those religious beliefs may be. So what we've got to do is we've got to tell groups like the Freedom from Religion group, like the ACLU, we will never back down to your bullying antics. We will not allow atheism to be the state-sponsored religion of our school system. Not here in Oklahoma. You guys need to leave our kids alone. We will not stand for it, and we will continue to fight for religious liberty here in the state of Oklahoma.
So that's Ryan Walters for you. That's what he said in response to all this. And in case you missed some of it, let me just highlight some of the awful, untrue things he said there. He said, we see Prague Public Schools backing down to a radical atheist group. What was radical about what they said? They said the law is on our side. The First Amendment says you can't endorse established religion. You know what I mean? You can't promote religion. And that's what the school's doing. That's not a radical atheist thing to say. That's what any halfway decent lawyer would tell you. In fact, that's what the district's own lawyer said. Ryan Walters also said this is a group funded by George Soros, which obviously that's a dog whistle for, right-wing people saying the Jews are funding them. For what it's worth, it's not true. George Soros does not fund FFRF. It's just something, conservative Christians say because they like to lie. That's what Jesus taught them. But Ryan Walters said FFRF is apparently funded by George Soros. He said it's from out of state, and they've just come in and targeted children. But the thing is, if you look in FFRF's initial letter, let me even read this from the letter. A concerned district community member has reported that this school is doing all this stuff. Basically, the way FFRF found out about this is not because they were like monitoring or stalking the school to figure all this out. Someone in the community told them, hey, this is happening. Maybe it's a parent, maybe it's a teacher. I don't know. But someone informed FFRF this is going on. FFRF looked into it, and basically the Facebook posts speak for themselves. Like, yeah, that is what's happening. Then they write the letter. If they're filing a lawsuit, obviously you want someone in the community to file that, but we're not at that point right now. So this isn't like FFRF is coming out of nowhere. It doesn't matter that their headquarters are out of state because Ryan Walters would be just as angry if someone in Oklahoma said any of this stuff. So none of that matters. He also said, we have to take a stand for our students' freedom of religion, their freedom to express their religious beliefs. They have that freedom. The students can always talk about Jesus. Anyone can pray privately. What they can't do is hijack the public address system to force all these other students and teachers to listen to their religious beliefs. Again, this would be obvious if we were not talking about Christianity. So that's the thing. And then, of course, at the end, Ryan Walters said, we will not allow atheism to be the state-sponsored religion of our school system. Notice what he's doing there. He's treating neutrality as state-sponsored atheism. He sees religious neutrality as persecution, which is how these people always operate. They want to live in a theocracy so bad that when you say, hey, let's all stay on an even playing field, these types of Christians whine because they're not getting everything they want. So he lives in a Christian bubble, obviously. And here's the thing. When I saw that video, my first thought is, yeah, I've seen Ryan Walters do this act before. He plays this part all the time. The video has no bite. It's just self-promotion for him. It's a way to signal to his conservative Christian base that they matter to him and he doesn't care about anybody else. Like, there's no indication he's using his office or his resources to push back against FFRF, because I think even he knows this is a losing battle. I think he also knows that his MAGA base is too dumb to realize that. So he just doesn't say that. But there's two things that have happened since Ryan Walters posted that video. And these happened this week. And this is why I wanted to bring this up. The first thing is that FFRF directly said to Walters, they wrote an open letter basically calling on him to resign. And I want to read you part of FFRF's letter here. This is the end of it. You have once again set out to interfere with and target school districts that do the right thing and end such constitutional violations. You deliberately stir up divisiveness and acrimony against them and flout your constitutional duties. As we have noted in past letters, it is plain that you are concerned only with advancing a Christian nationalist agenda that is antithetical to American values, rather than performing the duties of the state superintendent of public instruction. You are manifestly unfit to continue to serve in this role. You are a disgrace for your constitutional duties. I apologize. Your disregard for your constitutional duties and your flagrant political posturing are a disgrace to the office. And we once again renew our call for you to resign immediately. Love it. It needs to be said, but also he is not going to resign because of that. So that it's fun. It's fun for FFRF to get it out there. I'm sure it felt good to hit publish on that post, but that won't mean anything. But here's the far more disturbing thing. Check this out. This is from Prague Public Schools, the Prague, whatever, public schools. And they posted this letter. And check out what this one says. Basically, their letter says a recent media report refers to FFRF getting a letter from our attorney, but look in the middle right around, sorry, this is floating around here. In the middle of this letter, come on, internet, work for me. There we go. It says the response that their own lawyer sent to FFRF was deemed by the district's leadership to be an inappropriate response to the FFRF complaint, and direction was given to the district's legal counsel not to release the response. Unfortunately, the response was released, contrary to the district's direction, to FFRF. The content of the response was deemed by the district's administration to be unacceptable. So they just threw their own lawyer under the bus, saying, apparently, we don't really care what our own lawyer says about any of this stuff. We told him, listen, lawyer who is on our payroll, who we pay to do this sort of thinking for us, we hear what you said, and we say, doesn't matter. Don't care about what the Supreme Court said. Doesn't matter what the law said. We're going to just do whatever we want. So don't you dare send that letter to the atheists, even though it happened weeks ago. Like, why are they putting out this letter weeks after their own lawyer responded to FFRF? I think the obvious answer is because Ryan Walters made his little video and said, how dare this outside atheist group, bully this school district? Like, that has to be the reason, right? And also, why would the lawyer produce this letter that the district then says, nice draft, ignore it, change it, do something else? Why was this letter inappropriate to the district? We are not told the answer to that. Why do the district's leaders think they know better than their own lawyer does how to interpret the law? We are not told. And here's the bigger question. Okay, they sent this letter saying our lawyer never should have sent out that letter. But what does that mean they're going to do? Are they going to continue the prayers? Are they going to keep posting pictures of these kids delivering the prayers? We are not told. But the district sure seems like they're implying that they will do that again. And again, I think this is because Ryan Walters must have talked to them and said, probably, this is me speculating here, maybe Ryan Walters said, if this atheist group sues you, the state of Oklahoma has your back. We'll defend you in court for free. Because this happens all the time with right-wing conservative groups too, with right-wing legal groups, where they say, we'll defend you for free. What they never actually say is, if and when the district loses that lawsuit and they're on the hook to pay a bunch of legal bills, the state is not going to help them. That's money coming out of the district's pocket, or at least their insurer's pocket, which means those insurance rates will jack up. So I don't know. I did ask FFRF, hey, what do you think about this letter, this statement from the district? Are you worried about it? And what Chris Line, the attorney for FFRF, told me is that, yeah, it is concerned. FFRF is concerned that the district seems to be walking back its own assurance that it's not going to happen again. FFRF says this is clearly established law. We hope the district will follow the law and cease violating the rights of its students, as the response indicated it would. And I mean, that's kind of all you would expect FFRF to say right now, because until the district starts doing it again, there's no lawsuit in the works. No one's going to file a lawsuit. FFRF warned them. They said they would stop. Just because they said, we take that back, we have to kind of see what they're going to do next in order to figure this out. But I mean, right now, it doesn't look like it's going to end well for the students in that district, all because their administrators and the guy in the state in charge of public instruction are hell-bent on using their platforms to promote Christianity instead of educating students. So that's messed up. I'll pause there for a bit. Happy to take some questions while I'm looking at other stuff here. Sure, they can totally pray for the school. Right, just not over a loudspeaker. That's it. You can pray. I have heard from Christians that God hears your prayers even when you're silent, and you don't have to do it just for show. But what do I know? I've actually read the book. It is strange that kids this young are so religiously devout. Listen, yeah, not only are they probably not devout, like they're doing this to appease the adults in their lives. They want to make them proud. And of course, as you can see from those Facebook posts, if the kids pray and then their school posts a picture of them, like all of a sudden they're being told they're doing something good and right, and they want to do that. And maybe their friend does it. So then they want to do it. Like it's all coercion. And I'm not even saying it's necessarily malicious, but the adults in the room should know better. And at this school, they don't. Atheism as a state-sponsored religion. Yeah, my favorite beer is not drinking. Yep, my favorite hair color is bald. My favorite TV channel is off. Yeah, take your pick. Atheism is not state-sponsored religion. You know how I know that? Because in this school, they were not saying, oh, you're doing Christian prayers over the loudspeaker? Well, replace it with a passage from the God Delusion. Like, no one's saying that. No one's saying you have to get on the loudspeaker and say, God doesn't exist. We don't believe in God. No, just do the morning announcements and move on with class. That's all you got to do. We learned about different religions and mythologies in middle school. Helped me become an atheist, that and reading the Bible. Yeah, I mean, how many quotes are there? Like, the road to atheism is paved with well-read Bibles. Yeah, if you want your kid to become an atheist, just hand him a religious book. It'll happen. Oh, thanks, Guitar Dog. I appreciate that. That's very kind of you. All right, I am going to jump to the next story here. Oh, you're going to love this one. Give me a second to just set this up. Here we go. Yeah. Let's talk about book fairs for a second. Because when I was a kid growing up in part of Illinois, we had the Scholastic Book Fair at my elementary school. And for those of you who didn't have that or you're not familiar with that, basically the publishing company Scholastic, like the biggest seller and producer of like children's books, they put out the Harry Potter series after I was done with elementary school, but they also put out a ton of books all the time. They basically make a deal with a bunch of public schools around the country, and they've been doing this for decades, where they will set up an entire book fair in your school. They will put out the brochures that kids can take home. And if kids want any of the books, they can circle them and bring the money the next day. And now they have books. And what the school gets is they get a big cut of whatever the money Scholastic makes is. So it benefits the district because they're getting money from it. It benefits the children because they get new books that they're super excited about. I was excited when I got a book from them. And Scholastic gets to sell its products across the country. It's one reason there's such a behemoth in the publishing industry. So keep that in mind. And I'm going to get to the part that the reason I'm talking about them is this right here. This is the headline I saw that made me cringe for a second. Ah, yes. Kirk Cameron is taking on woke giant Scholastic with his own book fairs, or at least something he's a part of called Sky Tree Book Fairs. So Kirk Cameron wants to challenge Scholastic with some conservative slash kind of Christian version of a book fair. And here's the thing: whenever conservative Christians tell you we have an alternative to something secular, and I don't care if we're talking about boy bands or movies or theme parks, like you already know it's going to be substantively worse than the real thing. Like Ark Encounter is not better than Disney World. God's Not Dead is not a better movie than any movie that's ever been made. You know what I mean? Like they can't compete. And we know they can't compete because all of those conservative Christian alternatives are mission driven, not like talent driven. You know what I mean? And so they're just never as good as the real thing. They always want to inject an agenda, a political agenda, a religious agenda where it's not needed. And so, what Kirk Cameron is saying here, and Kirk Cameron obviously being the former child actor, he wants to create this alternative. And the thing that he thinks is too woke about Scholastic is that because they have this huge library of books, their books include books that depict real life. They have LGBTQ characters in them. Sometimes those are the main characters. Sometimes there are plots in these books revolving around racism with or maybe, age appropriate discussions about sex, or at least the way kids think about sex, because guess what? They do. And Kirk Cameron and conservative Christians would rather pretend that never happens and keep kids in a bubble where they're not exposed to any of that stuff. So, about this Sky Tree Book Fairs thing, according to this book fair group, they have said we have more than 200 children's books and we are trying to get 500 in our library. 200. That's the number of books they have on their roster. Scholastic, by the way, has well over 1,000 books in their roster, and it's constantly changing. And they hold more than 120,000 book fairs every year. So, like, it's not even a real competition here. And the thing is, when you have 1,000 books that you offer to schools and students, it's not that hard to find some out of context section that some parents are going to object to. And instead of saying, well, my kid's not going to buy or read that book, their response is always, no kids can read any books ever, or unless we have pre-approved it or something. Like, we need to shut down all of Scholastic, not just get that book out. And the thing about Skytree Books is that they work with a company called Brave Books. And we have discussed, I think, Brave Books on this live stream before. Let me show you some of the Brave Book books, because this is what Skytree is selling. And the thing, look, I'm going to scroll in here. Look at this. You have a book by Kirk Cameron right there. And look at this. Look at the byline there. It says Kirk Cameron and Brave Books. Like, Kirk Cameron wrote it, but so did the entire company, whatever that means. Let's see who else has written books for them. We have Elizabeth Johnston, who is like the activist mommy, one of those like Moms for Liberty types. What else do we have here? Dan Crenshaw. He's the right-wing Republican congressman from Texas. Jack Posobiec. He's just a right-wing troll on the internet. This one, Ashley St. Clair. Dana Lash, who works with the NRA. Who is this one? Missy Robertson from the Duck Dynasty group. Like, you get the idea here. It's a bunch of right-wing zealots, a bunch of trolls. That's who's writing all these books. And the reason I find all this hilarious, you know why they have the publisher's name on it instead of just by Kirk Cameron? Because this has come up in the past. Brave Books has actually put out a post basically asking people, uh, they're looking to hire people to write these books for them, like ghostwriters, but then we're going to slap a right wing celebrity's name on the books just so they'll sell because no one knows who you are as some anonymous writer, but they might know Kirk Cameron. So you write it, he'll slap his name on it, he'll do the promotion, everybody profits. That's how these companies operate. So Skytree Books is a company that just works with Brave Books, right? And the reason this is kind of concerning is that Saturday, December 2nd, Skytree got their first hit. They're working with the Spotsylvania County Public Schools in Virginia, and that'll be their first public school book fair. And it happens to be a school district where the superintendent removed a bunch of books from high school libraries. Kirk Cameron is coming to the school district to do a reading from the book he didn't actually write. And okay, let me back up for a second. Maybe you might think, okay, replacing one book fair with another is not that big of a deal, especially if the goal is to just get kids to read. Except the books offered by Skytree, they usually only celebrate like traditional themes and avoid all the aspects of humanity they don't understand. You're going to get a lot of right-wing propaganda. Like, this is what families are like, but they always look like one type of generic conservative Christian family. Everyone is cis. I know the main characters are animals, but you don't see any animals who look unusual or different or might be in the minority of anything. And here's the other thing I don't like about these Skytree books. If you remember any books from your childhood, there's probably a handful you remember because they have withstood the test of time. You know, Where the Wild Things Are, Curious George, The Berenstain Bears, whatever it is. Those books are, believe it or not, really, really hard to write. Because when you have a limited amount of space and you can't use big words and you're trying to talk about very simple, basic concepts, it's really hard to do that in a way that will stand out. The thing about the Scholastic books, and I'm not speaking about all of them, but some of them have really stood the test of time. They've been around for decades. Your parents are familiar with them. You're maybe familiar with them. You might get excited when your kid reminds you of those books. None of these Brave books, none of these right-wing books are that memorable. They just seem to think if you slap an animal as the main character and just write out some basic stuff like he was not brave, but then someone told him to be brave and now he's brave. Like, that doesn't mean it's a good kid's book. Your kid's not going to remember any of that. They'll read the first couple pages, maybe. They'll get tired of it. They're definitely not going to want to read it again. And in like a couple of months, no one's going to remember any of these books. I showed you some of those Brave books earlier. How many of them have you seen for more than half a second because one of those right-wing people was promoting it? You probably haven't seen it at all, like only if you watch Fox, I guess. But you're not going to remember them. They're not bestsellers. They're not ones you're going to read to your kids. Here's another problem with Skytree books, and I would love to show this to you, but I think the article is behind a paywall. Skytree does not post online a list of all the books it has available at its fairs. Just a couple of them. Like, what are they trying to hide? Because they have to know what books are available, but they won't post a complete list, which is weird. Their website claims to have 200 books in the catalog, but they think they can't give it away. I don't know. I don't get it. And again, their only reaction to this is our books are all age appropriate. They never use sexually explicit anything. They don't cause gender confusion as if that's what a kid's book does. It's just weird. The thing about their books is, notice the ambiguity. Having an openly gay character in a book, for example, isn't sexually explicit. It doesn't turn a kid gay. That's not how it works. But these right-wing people think that if you have a gay character, that's somehow pushing an agenda. Or if you have a character talking about being different or being treated differently because of how they look, that's some sort of unfair veil where it's an allegory for racism. And like it might be, because that's an important topic to discuss. A lot of kids have to deal with that. If your kids can deal with it, they ought to be able to read about it. But these right-wing books think that's activism, and they don't do activism. And their version of that is, we're just not going to have any gay characters. We're not going to talk about race. That's the way they deal with it. So I'm not worried Skytree is going to replace Scholastic, because they have nothing of value. I do worry that some school districts, especially ones run by right-wing school boards, or gullible enough to believe kids are under threat because they might be exposed to challenging books, I do think they will take up Skytree's offer to come to their school, which is interesting. Like Skytree, like I said, they only have one book fair in store on December 2nd, but they claim that in the spring they have 100 schools lined up. I don't know if I believe that, but that's interesting. One librarian told a reporter this: Skytree book fairs and Brave Books seem to be targeting the parents, not the children. And I think that's the best assessment of this thing. Scholastic publishes books that are made for kids. All these Kirk Cameron books, Skytree books, Brave Books, it's all about the adults. Because no kid is saying, I want to read a book by Dana Lash or Kevin Sorbo. That's who's the author I love. No one is saying that. Here's another thing about all this that is also messed up. And you may have seen this on the internet over the past few days. In Popular Information, the Substack website, they posted this week about another way Skytree was trying to undermine Scholastic. And the story there, let me see if I can pull this up. Check out this tweet that Skytree put out not too long ago. I'm just going to put this higher. We keep hearing kids are old enough to choose books responsibly, but this clip from a school board meeting in Texas proves otherwise. Find out how one innocent kiss in a Scholastic book led this young lady to porn addiction. And think about how they're framing that. They're saying, listen, we were just sitting here minding our own business, and this young woman we heard about, she talked about how a Scholastic book messed her up. And actually, what she says is she read a book, it had a kiss in it, pretty innocuous one for what it's worth, but that led her down a path where she got addicted to watching, inappropriate adult videos online. And that's what she was really disturbed by. And she wants to make sure kids today don't have to deal with that. And the answer is removing that book off the shelves. And Skytree just happened to clip that and share that. What Popular Information found is that this young lady mentioned in the tweet, they know who she is because she actually works for Brave Books. Her job is public relations coordinator for Brave Books. And Skytree, which works with Brave Books, is just promoting her like she's a random person who just happens to believe all the things we believe. And guess what? The saddest thing about all this, besides that deception right there, I forgot to mention, according to Popular Information, that woman in that spoke to the school board, she was homeschooled. How the hell did she have a Scholastic book fair? I don't know what she's talking about. But the bigger thing is that the Conroe school board that she spoke to, they fell for it. After listening to her, that book that had the kiss in it, they restricted access to it. And one of the school board members actually said we should replace Scholastic with Skytree book fairs. To which that woman in the video said, all glory to God, because it's all a scam. They're all liars. They can't tell the truth because they know it doesn't help their cause. Just a little side note about Skytree. But again, keep a lookout for it. Maybe it's in your community. Maybe they're trying to replace Scholastic because it's just a new way for them to shove their way into public schools because they haven't actually earned it by writing any books kids want to read. I'll stop there for a bit. What questions we got here? Oh, thank you. Oh, I remember you. You're looking great. Oh, that's very sweet. I have no idea why you would remember me, but thank you. I appreciate that. Poor Kirk Cameron. He so desperately wants to be relevant. I know I talked about this before. So when Kirk Cameron puts out these kids' books that he didn't write, his whole shtick for the past few months has been I'm going to go to public libraries, try to rent space, and then when they say no to me, or they say you're going to bring too many people in, so you can't hold the event here, he'll whine about being persecuted. And then his whole shtick is, well, they let drag queens in to read books, but they won't let a good Christian man do it. Like it's all pretend persecution. And so right now that's what he's doing at this book fair in Pennsylvania. He so wants to be relevant, and he doesn't actually do anything worth being relevant over. Like, it's okay to just fly off into the sunset, my dude. You had your glory days in the 80s or whenever Growing Pains was on. You had the minute of viral fame sitting next to a banana. Now go away. You're not interesting anymore. It's fine. Oh my, the book fair is woke? Listen, books are woke, according to these people. There's only one book that's not woke, and it's the one where Jesus tells everyone to be socialists and help the poor. And they love that one for some reason. The hungry the hungry caterpillar turned me trans. Yes, he had to eat everything. I don't know how that makes anyone trans, but like that's that argument. And I know you're joking, but that's exactly the sort of dumb argument that these right-wing people are making. Like if you read Curious George, it'll turn you into like I don't know. I was gonna make a bestiality joke. That feels inappropriate. But they really do think any book that depicts like two people together is promoting sexual explicit content. Any book that has a gay character or gay parents in the book somewhere, that's promoting an agenda, even though any book with two straight parents, that's apparently not. It's the same as like that 1 million mom lady. There's just one who complains about every commercial that has a gay couple in it because she just doesn't like gay people. But instead of saying that, she says this product is promoting an agenda. It's like that's not an agenda. You're just a bigot. Ah, targeting the parents, not the children. That's what Skytree is doing. Kids are not asking their parents for a book by Kirk Cameron. Right-wing parents who are addicted to Fox News might be trying to get a Kirk Cameron book for their kids, and their kids will hate it. But that is what they're doing. Is Brave Books gonna write a book on that porn spyware? Like, can you imagine Covenant eyes glaring over your manuscript for some of these things? Like, they have to pass that filter because if you include like a gay character in it, in the draft of your kid's book, Covenant eyes will alert uh, the Mike Johnson's son or whoever your buddy is. Anyway. All right. I'm going to get to the next story. This is a fun one. This Let me share this with you just cuz this headline cracked me up cuz it's about Sabrina Carpenter, who is a young singer. She is a Disney child star. I'm just pulling out all this stuff, but you could see from the headline she filmed a music video in a church and the priest was punished, and it's like, what the hell happened there that everyone got upset about? And so here's the story behind what happened in this video. Sabrina Carpenter, if you don't know, and if you're older than 30, the answer is you don't know. She's a 24-year-old singer. She just put out a video on Halloween for her new song. It's called Feather. And anytime you're filming in like a public place or you want to rent out a private place, your people send a request to the church or wherever, and her people send a request to Our Lady of Mount Carmel Annunciation Parish in Brooklyn, New York. And they said, we want to use the outside setting of your church for our video, maybe the inside, whatever they said. I don't know what they said. But the church priest, the guy running that church, said, yeah, he approved it. So they filmed the video. And when the video came out, what they realized is, wait a minute, there's some inappropriate stuff in here. Let me take you back to that New York Times article, just because this made me laugh. The church's pastor, Jamie Gigantiello, gave Miss Carpenter's team permission for the filming, But the diocese said he had not followed diocesan policy regarding the filming on church property, which includes a review of the scenes and the script. So apparently, the church has to vet everything that happens inside the church, which is interesting because when all the abuse was happening inside the Catholic Church, I don't remember them caring what was happening inside the church. But when a pop star wants to make a music video, apparently they got to know everything that's happening there. So they make the video. And in response to the video, this bishop celebrate. Oh, after all this happens, after they see the video, after they punish the priest, and we'll talk about that in a second, the bishop celebrated a massive reparation, which the diocese said restored the sanctity of the church and repaired the harm, which is just the most fancy way of saying they did this over the altar and their magic words made everything okay again because this young singer had defiled the place. It's just dumb. Also in this article, not long after the video was released on Halloween, the bishop relieved Monsignor Gigantiello of his administrative oversight. So the priest is still the priest. He wasn't fired from the priesthood, but he's basically fired from being able to like approve music videos in the future, right? That's the punishment. I would love to show you clips of this video, mostly to show you that it's not that big of a deal. I don't want this clip to get like demonetized later on, though, so I'm not going to show you that. But I will tell you what the video is about is Sabrina Carpenter singing about breaking up with a bunch of guys. The lyrics in here say things like, I feel so much lighter, like a feather, with you out of my life. So the song is about breaking up with guys who are not putting any effort into a relationship. There's a scene in the video where a bunch of guys are basically wrestling. They're in a locker room of sorts or a gym. They're literally fighting each other over her. She gets bloodied up in the process, but then all the guys are dead. And then there's a dude in an elevator who like sexually harasses her because he wants her. Guess what? He dies too. And then she's in the church, and I'll show you one picture of her in the church. This is her in her floofy dress inside the church in question. And you could see on either side of her, there's a coffin in like a pastel color. There's actually two coffins on either side of her. And I think that represents like the exes who have been destroyed. And she's free and dancing around them and all that. And obviously they decorated the altar, but whatever, that's what they do. They put it all back. Like none of that stuff is still there. They rented the space, they decorated it the way they needed to, then they got out of there after they were done filming, right? All of the church stuff takes place in the final 45 seconds of the video. It ain't even that long. But as Carpenter is dancing around there, she's wearing a crucifix. She has these images around her of these coffins. It's stuff you wouldn't see at church. Hell, it's a song you would never play in church, right? But there's nothing anti-Catholic about it unless you just think that using that space in a way that is for entertainment or, not sacred. If you think that's like blasphemous, okay. I guess they're mad because she's trying to bring joy to people. I think they're mostly offended that their building was tarnished in reputation by someone popular, and they're not used to doing that. According to one statement from the Diocese of Brooklyn, the bishop was appalled at what was filmed at this church. And the parish reportedly told the diocese that the production company failed to accurately represent the video content, which is really weird. Like the priest that was punished actually posted an apology on Facebook where he said, yes, I agreed to let them film in September. And then he said, quote, he did a, quote, general search of the artists involved, Sabrina Carpenter, and it did not reveal anything questionable. So he's basically saying, I Googled her. It looked fine. I don't know how this could have happened. Except like, what did you Google? If you Google her name and you see her older music videos, it's not like they're any different. She's a teen pop star. She's a former Disney princess pop star. You know what I mean? Like, what did you think her video was going to be about? Of course it's about guys. Of course it's about like fighting over guys. And what did you think she wanted to use the church for? To have a section of the music video where she's like praying, where she's sitting in a mass? I have no idea what they thought she was going to do. Her video was exactly what I would have expected. And I've never seen any of her videos before. And I think they're also mad because Sabrina Carpenter has been openly supportive of LGBTQ people. I don't know how that didn't cross their mind or didn't cross their internet search. And even if the filming, they said it was supposed to take place outside near the church, not entirely inside, but the substance doesn't change because they filmed in both locations. I'm not sure what the priest thought she was going to do. Um, I feel like this is a good time to point out that this diocese of Brooklyn, by the way, they faced nearly 600 sexual abuse lawsuits over the past few years. These people, after New York opened up, they passed a law saying, hey, if you were a victim of child sexual abuse, and your statute of limitations has run out, we're going to open a window where you can file a lawsuit against your assailant. The burden of proof is still there. I know it's really hard to prove something that happened decades ago, but it's on you. You can file a lawsuit. When that happened, the Brooklyn Diocese faced nearly 600 child sex abuse lawsuits. That's the group we are talking about here. They're mad about Sabrina Carpenter making a music video in their place. Not about the sexual abuse, but about her filming her video there. All right. By the way, those 600 lawsuits named 230 clergy members. The biggest problem in that church isn't that Carpenter filmed a video there. It's everything else that happens when she's not there. Okay. One of the things I heard people comment online is, well, this never would have happened in a mosque. Sabrina Carpenter would never have filmed the music video in a mosque. And it's like, yeah, she probably wouldn't have. You know why it makes sense that she did it in a church? Not because it was anti-Catholic, but it's because Catholicism and the way a church looks is so familiar to so many Americans. Like the iconography of the Catholic Church is famous enough that artists have been making references to it for centuries. If you put her in a mosque to do this, no one would know what they're looking at. Some Muslims, sure, but most people, not so much. Like, that's the price Catholics pay for being part of a religion with very distinct churches and massive reach and centuries of pillaging people's monies and land, right? The weird thing is, the reason the priest said he approved the project, he said this in his apology, is that this was an effort to further strengthen the bonds between the young creative artists who make up a large part of this community and the parish. He wanted to bridge the gap between those two sides. And the thing is, he could have done that. After this video came out on Halloween, you can just imagine a smarter priest would have said, all right, look, I saw that she did this in the church. It's not our thing. But you know what? If any of you want a tour of our church that you now know from this video, we'll give it to you. If you want to sit, you saw the music video, now sit in for an actual mass, sit in for a service. It's free. Come. They could have made that into a tourist attraction to raise money for whatever it is they do, or just to draw young people into the church. I'm sure there's a lot of people who would have wanted to see that. They didn't. They just flipped out and started attacking her. And I don't say this often. They should have taken a page from the Mormon Church, because when the Book of Mormon musical came out, which is not very friendly to the Mormon Church, it makes a lot of fun of the Mormon Church. In the playbill, the program that they handed out to people seeing the show, the actual Mormon Church took out a full page ad saying basically, like, you saw the musical, now see the real thing. Here's our website. Go check it out for yourself. Which, dude, well played. That's how you should do it, right? I don't think anyone watching the Sabrina Carpenter video would come away with it with any new negative thoughts about the church. They would just say, oh, that looks neat. But the church apparently thinks that this is horrible news for all of them. So I don't know. I don't think it's a smart strategic move to just alienate the fans of a really popular young singer. Like, why would any company right now, not that these people are on the same level, but like, why would any company say, you know who we hate? You know who we want to alienate? all of Taylor Swift's fans. Like, of course, that would be a horrible idea for any company. Again, not the same level, but I don't get why this Catholic church that is desperate for new blood, that wants young people to come in, I don't know why they're trying to like trash Sabrina Carpenter and anyone who apparently likes her video. That just seems really dumb on their part. I'll stop there for this one. What other questions we got here? If God can kill firstborns, what's a few boyfriends? No kidding. And according to that video, there's a lot of boyfriends. All this controversy has done is give her publicity. No kidding. And she already had plenty of it. I'm like, she starred in Girl Meets World, like the Boy Meets World spinoff, and she was like the sassy best friend of the main character. She was already well known. And her singing career has given her new fans and additional fans. She didn't need the publicity. But man, I hope she's milking the hell out of this because she deserves it. The video is the first thing that pops up when you search her. Not surprising. It's brand new. It's a popular video. Church could have gotten a piece of that publicity. Absolutely. They chose not to. And then they're wondering why young people don't like them anymore. Could it be the bigotry, the anti-gay stuff, the anti-abortion stuff, the sex abuse? No. They also apparently want the church to trash popular music and popular music videos. I don't know. They should hire me. The Catholic Church should hire me to make publicity decisions for them. I would be very good at it. I would be a lot better than all the people working for them right now. Carpenter, Jesus. What could go wrong? Well played. I like that. Don't they have magic words and rituals to purify the place? Yep. I mean, they did. They had their magic word ritual ceremony to purify the place. So, like, what are they mad about? Why did they punish the priest then if everything is okay now? Or do even they not think their magic words did the trick? What do they think this guy is going to do? Because, again, they only relieved him of administrative duties. He's still a priest there. Like, are they afraid he's going to say yes to Beyonce when she wants to film a video in their church? Like, you would be so lucky. What are your thoughts on the upcoming election? Sure. Let me give you a 4-second answer. I appreciate the question. I'm sure we'll talk about it soon. I don't know. I don't know that I have any. I'm assuming you're talking about the 2024 election. Am I optimistic? No, not yet. I feel like a lot of Democrats, though, in that sense, like, I'm not thrilled about how things are going right now. I know how I'm going to vote. I do early voting. I'll do my part. I am deeply concerned that people will fall for everything Donald Trump is doing again, and they'll think he can actually get shit done when he doesn't give a shit about any of it. That concerns me because most people are dumb. Sorry, fact. Most people are dumb. So, and I'm not saying people who don't pay attention to politics are dumb, because there are plenty of people who don't pay attention to politics because they have other things they need to do. But that's the thing. I'm sure a lot of you who are watching this have a lot of very strong political views. You're all going to vote because, of course, you are. The concern is, what about people who aren't going to vote? What about the Democrats who are like, well, Biden isn't doing everything I like, so I'm just going to sit out the election? Like, oh, that's infuriating. Like, sorry, the one option you have in a two-party system isn't ideal. Like, man, no one complains about Democrats more than Democrats. I know. But too bad. Shut up and vote, and then push him in the direction you want and get him a House and a Senate that'll do the job. But that's an uphill climb. Why did you ask me this question? I have other thoughts too. I'm going to move on only because I'll spend all day on this. You take the Catholic Church's money, though? You mean if they hired me to do their publicity outreach and stuff? Absolutely. You know why? Because I know where they spend the money, and it's in like lawsuits to protect their priests and all that stuff. It's so much better in my pocket. Just give me a section of the Vatican. I'll take good care of it. I will sell it off. I'll give a portion of the money to charity. It'll be fine. I'll take anybody's money. If the Republicans want to give me money, that's fewer commercials for them to use. You know what I mean? All right. Anyway, a couple more big stories here that I wanted to discuss. This one, holy crap, this one is really disturbing. This is the headline that surprised me. Check this out from Oregon. This is from Oregon Public Broadcasting. And the reporter here is Lauren Dake, who's covered the foster care system in Oregon for a while now. So she's written several articles about this. But look at this headline for a second, because this is disturbing. Oregon is placing foster children in unlicensed short-term rental homes and paying millions to do so. And why am I talking about this? Because of the subtitle right here, the subhead. State child welfare officials signed a contract with a religious nonprofit, paying it more than 100 times the amount they pay foster parents to care for vulnerable children. So let me back up for a second and explain what is going on here. Like, just to give you some backstory here, Oregon has, like a lot of states, they've been struggling for years to care for vulnerable kids. If you're a foster child, you don't have parents, you don't have anyone who can take care of you. The state has you in custody, and maybe they want to put you in a temporary home until you are an adult and able to function on your own. So the state has an obligation to take care of you. And what's been happening, and this is something Lauren Dake has been reporting on for a while. I'm going to show you some other headlines here because they're also disturbing. It's been a problem in Oregon. Oregon continued to put foster kids in hotels. They were putting them in hotel rooms. How is that good for the kids who need some sort of family to look after them? In other cases, they just sent them. Here's another article. Out of state, out of mind. And check this out. The second paragraph there. Emails, case files, and interviews show that for children in foster care who were sent across state lines, Oregon largely trusted a private for-profit company to basically do everything. The result is a litany of disturbing outcomes, tales of abuse, neglect, vulnerable children left to fend for themselves. So this is the point. It's hard enough to take care of these foster children. Sometimes there are foster parents who take in these kids and oh my God, they're saints for doing that. And hopefully, they know they're taking in these kids only temporarily. Sometimes they do it for more than one child. The state gives those families some money to assist them with the process. But here's the problem in this case of Oregon. Because they, I guess, had a lack of foster parents. And then the question becomes, well, what do we do with these kids we got to take care of? Sometimes they sent them out of state. Maybe another state can help us take care of it. We'll give them money to do it. But there was a lot of abuse, not enough oversight. That's a problem. Sometimes in Oregon, they put those kids in hotel rooms or Airbnbs or something. It's like those kids do not need to be living on their own. They need to be in a family somewhere where they have people who are looking after them day after day. And they have a sense of permanence, even if it is temporary. You know what I mean? And so in Oregon, check out this paragraph in this article. In October of 2022, Oregon child welfare officials signed a contract with this Christian ministry called Dynamic Life, noting that they could be paid up to $2,916 per day for every child or teenager the state places in their care. This Christian ministry could get up to $3,000 a day per child. Compare that to the amount the state's child welfare system pays a foster parent to care for a teenager, which is $795 per month. Maybe a little more if that child has special needs or anything else like that, if they have other needs. But again, it's not much. Meanwhile, this Christian ministry is getting so much more than that. In the last 12 months, the state of Oregon has paid the religious nonprofit more than $7.75 million to provide support services to about 40 kids at risk of temporary lodging and to those already in temporary lodging as a hotel. So that's messed up. Why are they giving this Christian nonprofit so much money? That's insane. It's not weird, by the way, for a Christian nonprofit to get taxpayer dollars to do secular work. That happens across the country. There's nothing illegal about that. But the only way that's supposed to happen is if the religious ministry has oversight, if they play by the state's rules. That's what's supposed to happen. You may have heard of controversies where the state says, if we give money to a Catholic-run adoption agency, well, they can't discriminate against gay parents. And the Catholic ministry might say, We can do whatever we want. We have the right to discriminate against gay parents. And then there's a lawsuit and things like that. But in this case, if you're giving money to a foster care ministry or a ministry that says we have foster parents, they're supposed to play by the rules. That's not what's happening here. If anything, it's worse because the ministry is just taking all that money that could have been used to help those kids in other ways. Like, my God, they could rent an apartment or put a down payment on a house with that sort of money or something. Like, the kids would benefit so much more if that money went to certified foster parents instead of this Christian ministry. Or hell, some sort of marketing campaign to get more foster parents. And we know that because this ministry is not held to the same standards. In normal situations, state officials and attorneys always have access to the foster kids. They don't with this ministry. Employees at licensed childcare agencies usually have training when it comes to like not hurting kids who are acting out. Employees with this ministry don't. Licensed childcare agencies run background checks on potential employees. This ministry does not. We don't know who they're hiring. And in fact, according to the article, dozens of staffers have not had a proper background check. So that's messed up. And I know this is besides the point, but the guy who runs that organization, the guy who founded Dynamic Life Ministries, his name is Nathan Weber. He is a fan of Tucker Carlson, Pat Robertson. He is anti-trans. You could tell from his social media posts, which raises questions about what is he going to do? What's this ministry going to do if they have a trans kid in their care? Meanwhile, the guy, Ned Clements, the guy who currently is the president of that ministry, he apparently hires people as young as 18 to run this place, and they have to agree to work at least 72 consecutive hours a week, which makes no sense. That's like intense for doctors who work in the ER, but apparently 18-year-olds are supposed to do that to take care of kids who are like 16. So all of this is messed up. The article pointed out one of Dynamic Life's employees, if I could find this bit here, one of Dynamic Life's employees, shoot, I apologize, where'd it go? He was charged with helping kids with their mental health. He calls himself Christ's psychologist in training. Weber's son, the guy who founded this place, Weber's son is currently facing numerous misdemeanor charges related to harassment and menacing of his own young children. But that guy works with this ministry. Like, people like that should not be around kids, period, much less vulnerable kids in the foster care system. The article also pointed out that one child who had to work with this Christian ministry, this is a foster child, she said that she was non-binary. When she was 15, she told Nathan Weber she was non-binary. He responded with, "And I identify as an attack helicopter." Because they only have that one joke. It doesn't even make sense. That same kid said she was only allowed to speak to her best friend for 10 minutes a week. They restricted her ability to talk to her friends. And so, why are they doing this? One reason Oregon officials said they approved spending over $2,000, nearly $3,000 perhaps, per child per day, was to prevent and reduce the risk of temporary lodging. Like, they don't want to stick kids in hotels, so they'll give this ministry the money. But by giving that money to an unlicensed Christian ministry with uncredentialed staffers, they're taking a bad problem and making it worse. By the way, in the case of that 15-year-old I just mentioned, when a real foster parent stepped up to take her in, the ministry kept her in place by having a staffer become a certified foster mom, which allowed them to say the kid already had a foster mom. She doesn't need another one. Keep giving us the money, state of Oregon. Like, the ministry basically functions as a prison. It wants to keep in as many kids as possible because they get paid for doing that. It's like what's wrong with the actual prison system, too. So after this article was published, the state of Oregon officials there said, "We are conducting an internal review of Dynamic Life," which is good, and that's important, but why didn't that happen sooner? This ministry has lobbyists, They are apparently buying up more property in Oregon so they can expand their ministry here. And this problem only got this far because state officials were less concerned about the welfare of children and more concerned with just throwing money at a problem, hoping it would stick without doing any due diligence. Like, we've seen that be a problem. Anytime any religious institution says we take care of kids, you have to pay close attention. We've seen the problems when it comes to the Catholic Church, when it comes to evangelical run boarding schools for kids. Like, you have to watch what they're doing because they will hurt the kids. It happens all the time. It should not take an investigative journalist to get the state of Oregon to realize its mistakes. Like, too many kids' lives are at stake here. I'll pause there for a second. What other stories, questions? As a foster care alumni who was placed with fundies, this really bothers me. There's a real push in fundy circles to be foster parents as a ministry. That, I believe you. I know that's true. It's also true that a lot of evangelical churches urge the congregation members to adopt kids. Like, what better way to spread the gospel than like have a like just take in a child, feed them the gospel because they don't have anything else. They don't have anyone shoving it down their throats. Why don't you do it? And I'm not saying, I want to be clear. I think it's wonderful that churches are encouraging church members to be foster parents, adoptive parents. We need more of that. I wish there was a better infrastructure in the secular community to do that. But if the goal of you doing it is so you could proselytize or get that kid to just shove the Bible in their face, you're not doing it for the right reasons. LGBTQ, atheist, and trans foster kids face a lot of discrimination due to how many foster families are religious. Yeah, it's already hard enough to be in any of those categories. Imagine what happens when the person who is tasked to take care of you hates all those groups, and that would be disturbing. Fundamentalist purity culture beliefs are awful for kids placed in foster care due to sexual abuse, I assume. And yeah, I believe that. Finally, a lot of fundy fosters go through the few belongings that kids have, yikes, and toss what is not biblical in the trash. Oh, that's awful to hear. The story breaks my heart. I mean, your story breaks my heart too. It's awful that anyone has to go through that. And again, those kids have probably, in most cases, have been through so much already, and to go from a bad situation to one where you are now trapped with a fundamentalist Christian family that is not interested in what you need, but only what they think you need. Oh, that's got to be just horrific. Very disturbing. The definition of nonprofit is questionable. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't take much to become a nonprofit. It requires oversight to make sure they're reporting how much they're taking in. And again, when you say you're a Christian ministry, it actually shields some of the information that other nonprofits have to provide the government in order to maintain that status. By giving them money, the way to say it, or is funneling them the money the best way. Oh, I get what you're saying. Like, yeah. Again, I want to know if they're getting $2,000, $3,000 per kid per day. I would like to know where that money is going. How are they using it? How does the spending of that cash benefit the kid? I want to know the answer to that. I mean, forget me. What am I going to do with that information? Oregon officials should demand that information. And if they're not getting it, then they need to stop working with that ministry. It shouldn't be that complicated. Don't know if this was mentioned, but this also has the potential of using government funds to contribute to bad political causes by way of the lobbying to change the laws, to do all that stuff. Like Liz, yeah, I think you're right. This is the concern anytime it involves the government giving money to a religious ministry for secular work. If there isn't transparency, if there isn't oversight into where the money is going, you have to assume they're using that money to just advance their own causes in other ways. And maybe that is political, to get someone elected, to get the law changed in their benefit. Like, it's disturbing. Who determines which kids get sent to these religious people? You know, it's the state officials who are in charge of taking care of them, but I don't know what the process is. Um, maybe the person who was commenting earlier about being HR, maybe if you're hearing this, maybe you can answer that in the comments. Who gets to determine where you live in these situations? How much say does the child have in the process? How much is state officials? I'm not sure the answer, so I don't want to pretend like I know otherwise. All right. I'm going to get to this is a similar disturbing story. Uh this one's out of Louisiana. But before I get to the actual story, I feel like there's a bit of background when it comes to homeschooling because that's what the story is about. There's a little bit of background I feel if you're not familiar with Christian homeschooling, you should really know this aspect of it. This story is, I was saying this on the podcast the other day. This story has stuck with me for a couple of years because there is a woman, her name is Cynthia. She was on one of those TLC Quiverful, lots of kid shows, not the Duggar show, but one of the other ones just like it. And ever since that show and in the past several years, she has really been very outspoken about the problems with conservative Christianity and her upbringing. And one of the things she posted a while back, this was, I'll share this with you right here. This was her website. She wrote about her homeschool transcript. And I'll skip ahead to she posted her transcript from her homeschooling Christian environment because she did have a 4-year high school transcript. I'll show you a better version of it right here. And I think this is worth going over because these are the grades she had. Let's look at freshman year right here on the left, upper left. You could see she took several classes. She got all A's and B's, very impressive grades. She took math, writing, Bible. I don't know what class that is, but okay. Oh, she got an A in basic sewing, as one does. She got an A in survival / hunter safety, which is an interesting class. I mean, so you have some real classes, you have some really wacky ones mixed in there, but lots of A's. Look at her sophomore year. You got pre-algebra, debate, current events. I don't know what class that is, but okay. You got another Bible class, fine. What happened junior year? Class in straight A's junior year. You got apologetics. You got publishing internship, whatever that was. And senior year, what'd she get there? Was that all A's? That was also all A's. We get another apologetics class, volunteer child counselor. Okay. So you could see her grades here. She was very proud of this back in the day. But the reason she posted this online is because of something she wrote on her website about all this. Here, let me show you this. She said that transcript was essentially BS. Here's what she wrote on her website where she posted all this. Below is the high school transcript that I designed and wrote myself based on a template I found on Google and asked my parents to sign. The first thing to note is that I'd never been graded on anything and knew only that I needed to be realistic while getting as close to a 4.0 as possible, which means all A's. When I presented it to my dad, he asked why I had not put down 4.0 and everything, and I said it didn't seem realistic to me. I knew I hadn't taught myself math very well, though I tried to work my way to the answers on my own. Every grade is not even a guess, but a blatant lie, because I never had grades. I just needed to write something that looked like I had. So that's what her education was like. That entire transcript we just looked at, all a lie. The grades don't reflect her understanding of the subjects or her work ethic or anything. It's just a form she filled out on a whim and that her parents later approved by just signing off on it so she could have something to show strangers down the road. That's why you could tell why that story, I think, has stuck with me for a while. She said, by the way, that she eventually went to a community college, and there she obviously struggled at first because it turns out she didn't know a lot. And it took years, she said, for her to actually figure out what holes existed in her education. I'm honestly really impressed that she was able to fill many of those gaps to the point where she could now write about it all really eloquently. So good for her. I hope she's okay. But the reason I bring all this up is to say something I think is pretty simple. If you are getting homeschooled, that might be fine, but it's got to be regulated. There should be some sort of oversight that says the kids are actually learning at least some basic core subjects that they need to learn. And after that, if you want to teach them hunting, survival stuff, or Bible class, apologet, whatever, that's your right as a parent if you're going to homeschool your kid. But like, the state has a vested interest in making sure a kid is learning math and reading and writing and basic stuff like that. So, and by the way, having that oversight would also allow the state to make sure the kid's not getting abused, which happens a lot in homeschooling environments. Like, a lot of times when these Christian parents homeschool, they ignore a basic rudimentary education. Sometimes they replace it with like a gender based, Bible heavy curriculum, which doesn't help. We've seen that in ultra Orthodox Jewish communities as well, where those schools don't prepare kids for the real world at all because those kids are expected to stay in their religious bubble. Like, there's a huge New York Times series of articles about how ultra Orthodox Jewish schools were not teaching kids, even though they were getting taxpayer money to educate those kids. So that's the issue with homeschooling. Some parents do it very well. Secular parents who are homeschooling parents do it well. Christian parents who are homeschooling parents, they can do it well. But man, I've heard too many stories about homeschooling parents whose kids slip through the cracks, and they are the ones fighting tooth and nail to make sure everything is unregulated. And the reason I bring all that up is because of this story that appeared in the Associated Press this week. And this is the headline that I want to share with you here. This is appalling. Diplomas for sale, $465, no classes required, inside one of Louisiana's unapproved schools. They're just selling diplomas to anyone who wants them. And here's the part that matters right here. Unlike public schools, formal homeschooling programs or traditional private schools I'm sorry, I apologize, I misread that. Unlike public schools, formal homeschooling programs, or traditional private schools, nearly 9,000 private schools in Louisiana don't need state approval to grant degrees. Nearly every one of those unapproved schools was created to serve a single homeschooling family, but some have buildings, classrooms, teachers, and dozens of students. What that story is about is there is a woman in Louisiana who runs a school called Springfield Preparatory School. It's like an umbrella school for Christian homeschoolers. And what she says is she does offer classes. They do allow you to, if you want to be homeschooled, a bunch of homeschooling parents can say, well, we're sending you to this Christian school for part of the day so you can get your education that way. But the woman who runs it, her name is Kitty Sibley Morrison. She will just stamp her school's logo on a diploma that means nothing if you pay her $465. And any parent who requests one can get it, even when there's no indication their kids have earned a diploma. Like, some kids do take classes through her organization, but others don't, and she doesn't verify any of it. And why is she able to get away with it? Because Louisiana's laws are so pathetic when it comes to oversight of children who are homeschooled. I'll show you this once again. The students in Louisiana's off-the-grid school system aren't missing, but there's no way to tell what kind of education they're getting or whether they're getting one at all. Over 21,000 students are enrolled in the state's unapproved schools, nearly double the number from before the pandemic. So this problem is getting bigger. It's getting worse. And this was also disturbing. There is no way for the government to verify safety, quality, or even whether a school exists, according to a former State Department of Education official. So this is the concern. It's a literal diploma mill, and people are getting these diplomas that are worthless. It's like buying an NFT or something. Like, you think you're getting something of value, and you might be the only one who doesn't realize that thing's a piece of garbage and it doesn't have any actual worth. And lawmakers are letting them do it. Like, in a real situation, if you get a real high school diploma, colleges are going to recognize that as indicative that you did the work. They're going to want to see your transcript. They're going to want to see what classes you took, and they'll say, okay, this is evidence that you have what it takes to take our classes and do well. Come to our college. Maybe if you're applying for a scholarship, they want to see your diploma, they want to see your transcript, things like that. But in this case, these these fake diplomas don't actually do anything. I think they're just assuming no one's going to do the vetting. No one's going to check. They'll just see it says diploma on the top, and they'll see a school's name on it, and maybe no one will care. By the way, because Louisiana has such awful oversight, there have been stories of sexual abuse, doctored academic records, but usually the stories that you hear about these schools are about kids who think they're getting an education, but they're actually not. And one of the other reasons this is happening, I feel like this is also worth sharing. This is all because this is what conservative Christians want. They've been fighting for this for a while. Louisiana's unapproved private schools came into being in 1980 when Christian ministers who ran small private schools joined forces with the budding homeschool movement to push for the deregulation of private education. Lawmakers eliminated the requirement for private schools to have at least 50 students and state certified teachers. Now you could have a student body population of 2. And who's teaching it? I don't know. Some dude we found off the streets, doesn't have any certification whatsoever. Opponents have tried on multiple occasions to get the law repealed, but falter in the face of lobbying efforts from Christian homeschool groups. Today, over a dozen states allow families to open a private school as a form of homeschooling, including my own, Illinois. Around half the states require those schools to teach basic subjects like math and reading. Louisiana is not one of them. By the way, take a look at the right here, the name of the organization that is given this information, the Homeschool Legal Defense Association. That is the Christian lobbying group that is at the that has been at the forefront of making sure the government can't look after children. They will do anything to make sure the government has no say in what a kid learns. And then when a kid doesn't learn anything, they just dismiss it like it doesn't matter. They don't care. They don't care if kids fall through the cracks. Oh, by the way, there's another thing about this diploma mill that seems disturbing. The article profiled one lady who actually got a diploma that way. She paid the nearly $500 for it, but check this out. The document was backdated to 2015 when she would have graduated high school. It also said she'd completed a program for graduation approved by the Louisiana Board of Education, which is not true. After inquiries from the Associated Press, Sibley Morrison said, it's been a mistake and it'll be corrected. But also, signs at the school advertise state-sponsored diplomas, even though the state hasn't approved anything. Sibley Morrison says she can use those words because she encourages each family in the program to simultaneously sign up for the state-approved home study program. So she's just lying. She is just giving off these fraudulent documents, these diplomas that look real, but they are not. It's just fake stuff. And this would be fixed if you had some level of accountability. I'm not saying they should infringe upon these parents' rights or anything, but like having a social worker who can show up to the door to your house on a scheduled visit every so often and say, I just want to make sure this kid they know how to read. They know how to do some basic math. Let me talk to the kid, make sure they're actually learning during the school day, in addition to whatever else they do at home. And cool, you're doing it all. Carry on. That's not asking much. They're not punishing you for having some sort of religious education or anything like that. But the fact that Christian homeschooling groups like the Homeschool Legal Defense Association wants no accountability should make everybody wonder, what are they trying to hide? What are they trying to cover up for? Like, why is that a benefit when the alternative we are seeing regularly is so awful? I am reminded earlier this year, there was this really wonderful article. I encourage you all to read it. I will post a link in the comments here, a gift article in the Washington Post about a Christian couple. Here is this link I'm posting in the comments. It was about a Christian couple that had been homeschooled their entire life. And when they grew up, this is Christina and Aaron Beal. They were both conservative Christian homeschooled kids. Christina even graduated from Patrick Henry College, which is a school founded by Michael Ferris, the guy who founded the Homeschool Legal Defense Association. So she's grown up in this bubble. So did her husband. But for a bunch of reasons explained in the article, they chose to put their eldest of 4 kids in a public school. And they were worried because they were told very bad things about public schools all their life. And they realized the school was great. They found out their first grader fit in. She adjusted to the environment. Her teacher loved her. She made friends. Her reading skills improved. And this is the part that was very interesting. I want to find the exact quotation so I don't mess it up here. This is the part of the article I really enjoyed. This is from the daddy, Aaron. People who think the public schools are indoctrinating don't know what indoctrination is. We were indoctrinated, Aaron says. It's not even comparable. Like, they realized they had been lied to their entire lives by these conservative Christians who told them public schools were just bastions of inappropriate everything, just groomers everywhere. And the article pointed out that any doubts they had about public school were usually silenced by their wonder and gratitude at the breadth of their children's education. Like, that's what educators and public school advocates have been saying for years. The best public schools do so much for kids. They offer this wide array of experience and opportunities and the sort of people you might not meet inside your, personal bubble. They are heavily regulated. They have standards. If kids start falling through the cracks, there are systems in place to help those kids. And I know public schools have flaws too. Some of them are not up to par, and they should not be immune from criticism. But the Christian right has spent years lying about the extent of those problems to an audience of believers predisposed to hating anything involving the government. So they demonize these hardworking teachers and administrators, and they try to get school boards to destroy the system from the inside. They push parents to do homeschooling and then offer them the sort of BS fact-free books, textbooks, Abeka books, Bob Jones University books. Like, it's all indoctrination. But the thing you have to appreciate about public schools is the oversight and the transparency with the curriculum that covers core subjects and so much more. And there's a way to make sure that the teachers and administrators are certified to do what they do, and their counselors are certified. Homeschooling can work. I'm not even trying to trash homeschooling because there are people who do it well. There are Christians who do it very well. But if there's no way for the government, for anyone to know if it's working, to know if they're doing it well, and that kids are getting at least a basic education on top of whatever else you want to teach them, then these problems are going to fester. Like, we have seen religious communities fail at this so many times. And it's because of groups like the Homeschool Legal Defense Association. It's grossly irresponsible. Like, there's no way to have a serious discussion about homeschooling in this country without bringing up how conservative Christians have used homeschooling to shelter their own kids, to deprive them of useful information, and to lie about public schools. And this is another example of it. Now this lady in Louisiana is just diploma mill. You want to buy it? I'll sell it to you. I was reminded a lot of when the pandemic happened. There were a lot of conservative Christian pastors who said, if anyone needs me to write them a note to say this person has a religious exemption from getting vaccinated, these pastors are like, I'll write you that note. I don't even care if you're in my congregation. Just pay me and I will send you that doctor's note. Like, it besides the fact that that is so irresponsible, and besides the fact that that's just a flat out lie is what they're doing. But that's what I was reminded of with this. Like, this lady's handing out diplomas to anyone who wants them. And by the time these 18-year-olds ish or their parents realize that they've been given fancy toilet paper and nothing more, it'll be too late to do anything about it. Because when a college says, oh, yeah, this is fake, none of this counts, you can't come to our school, or a scholarship program says, yeah, you didn't do anything in school, you've already missed out on those years of your life. Like, the victims in all this are the children who are led to believe they're getting an education, but are not getting a real education. So I'll stop it there for this story. Any other questions here? They're not helping their kids succeed in adulthood. I mean, that's the problem, right? It might work for, let's say, young women, for little girls. Like, if your only thought is when they grow up, they need to know how to cook a meal for their husband, who they're going to marry as soon as they turn 18 or like 16 in some states, then okay, fine. But as we saw with those ultra Orthodox Jewish communities, what happens when some kids want to go to a real college? What happens when they want to get a secular job doing anything? Like, they only realize at that time, oh, I don't know anything. And these people who my family disparaged for going to a public school, they know a lot more than I do. Like, it's really disturbing. That's also true of conservative Christian colleges. You don't realize, you think you're getting an education, then you graduate and you run into people who are like, oh, honey, all of that you just told me is wrong, factually untrue. Where did you get this information from? And it's like, I got it from my like right wing textbook. It's like, yeah, that's why you don't know any science. That's why you're not prepared for the classes you have to take. So disturbing. The fact that these folks prefer their children to start life completely ignorant speaks volumes. No kidding. I have kids. I want them to learn as much as possible. I love the fact that I get updates on like the sort of stuff they are learning. It's really exciting. I can't imagine for the life of me actively working to make sure my kids don't know stuff. Like, how bad of a person do you have to be to keep your kids in this sort of bubble? All right. One last story. This, I figured I would end on one happy note. You deserve some good news. I've talked about this sort of thing before, but uh, there is a thing in Congress called the Congressional Free Thought Caucus. It was started by Jared Huffman, who is the only openly humanist member of Congress. And even though it's the Congressional Free Thought Caucus, just a reminder, this is not an atheist club or anything. It's a group of lawmakers in DC who promise to dedicate themselves to promoting reason based public policy, keeping church and state separate, opposing discrimination against non religious people, championing freedom of thought around the world. Like, that should be a coalition of everyone in Congress, but it's not. There are only a handful of members, but Jared Huffman started it. Jamie Raskin is on it, several other prominent Democrats. The reason I bring that up is they just got a new member this week, and it's this guy. If he looks familiar to you, that is Maxwell Frost from Florida. He's not only a first term member of Congress, he's the youngest guy in Congress. He is also very proudly progressive when it comes to a lot of issues. He's only 26 years old. He worked with March for Our Lives, fighting for gun safety. So he just joined the Congressional Free Thought Caucus, but you won't hear this from him. The only reason we know this is because on Jared Huffman's House website, he has a list of caucus members. And if you scroll to the bottom, there he is at the last line right there, Maxwell Frost. That's the only reason we know he's on there. As far as I can tell, Maxwell Frost did not post anything saying he was going to be doing this. He hasn't addressed it at all. I wish he would. But I find that interesting. That list, that's 20 people in the caucus right now. It's growing. It's slow, but it is growing. So that's exciting. In case you're wondering, is Maxwell Frost non-religious? The answer is no. He's actually very religious. He is Christian. The Pew Research Center puts out a study every 2 years of the new Congress and their religious affiliations. Maxwell Frost was listed then as Baptist. Again, I don't know how devout he is, if he's not, whatever. It doesn't matter, because guess what? You can be Baptist and support church-state separation and things like that. That's all well and good and fine. In fact, of that list of 20 people, Jared Huffman is openly humanist, like I mentioned, and that's it. All the other people have a religious label, or like they don't use a non-theistic label. Like they're all religious in some form or another, or they use a religious label. Like Jamie Raskin uses the word Jewish, but even he will tell you it's more of a cultural thing, not a religious thing. But there you go. That's Maxwell Frost. He's a member of that caucus. And in case you're wondering, like, there is a Congressional Prayer Caucus. That one is huge. That has like 200 plus members, most of whom are Republican. It's huge. They're influential. They can, if they said we're supporting this policy because all of our people want it, or we're voting against this, they could tank a bill if they wanted to. The Congressional Free Thought Caucus is not quite at that level. I hope it will be in the future. I hope anyone who's considering retiring decides to join the caucus. Give it some momentum or something. It would be nice. All 20 of the members of the caucus are currently Democrats. I wish that wasn't the case. It doesn't have to be the case, but it is, because there's only one sane party in the country right now. Uh, I think maybe one of the most shocking things about the Congressional Free Thought Caucus is how little media attention it gets. Because there are new members joining every couple of months, it seems. And like, I rarely read anything about it. No one seems to care who the members are, not even in right wing media. And I find that fascinating because it wasn't that long ago where even being adjacent to an atheist group or something would have been a political taboo. And now you got these religious Democrats saying, yeah, I'll join the Free Thought Caucus. I'll link up with all these atheists in a sense, or at least the idea of them. So I think it's also cool that in terms of Frost and Sean Casten and all these other people who are in there, none of them seem to think it's a deal breaker as they head into 2024. Like, you might see people saying, you know what, I like the caucus, but I don't want to join it because someone might try to use it against me when I'm running for reelection. All these people in the caucus don't seem like they mind that. They're not worried about that, which again, I think that's a huge push in the right direction. I'm so glad they're not afraid of being a member of this caucus. Now we just need more people to join them. Hey, if you're a member of Congress, might be a good candidate, send them an email, tell them to join or something. It's not too late. That's it. I'll stop there. If there's any other questions, I'll get to them. Otherwise, I'll wrap it up. Yes, happy note for everybody at the very end. If there were more people joining, even happier. Happy note from Congress. I had that while watching the House vote over breakfast. Single tear for George Santos, the former Toots from Florida. Let him fly under the radar for a bit. I believe, I could be wrong here. I think he's from a part of Orlando. So it's like big blue dot in a red state. The bigger story for Max Frost, if I remember correctly, is when he won the primary. Because everyone already knew if you win the primary in that particular district, you were going to win the general election. So him winning the primary and beating some seasoned politicians, much older than him, obviously, like 25 is the minimum you can run for Congress. And that dude was 25, and he's like, let's go. I hope he's there for a while. With a current 2-vote majority now, 20-member caucus might have more voting power than usual. That would be true if then that 20-member caucus included Democrats and Republicans. But because it's all Democrats, the caucus doesn't have the weight to push anything over to the other side that other Democrats may not want or do want or whatever. But again, it's all a good sign. It's all pushing in the right direction, because as the Democratic Party becomes, as its base becomes more and more non-religious, that sort of caucus may have more sway when it comes to how we do things like oaths of office, prayer at public places, things like that. I don't know what they're going to do. Right now, more of their press releases, more than anything else, have been about freedom of religion and places where you actually do get persecuted for not being religious. So more of that, please. It's all good. Cool. In that case, I'm going to call it a night. Have a good night, everybody. Please, I'll go through the motions here. Thank you, Den, for helping out with everything. I would appreciate if you support this channel by going here. I have no idea if people are using the emoji that you get as a member, but I hope they're fun. And if you haven't subscribed to this channel already, go do it. And I'll see you next week at this time. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. Talk to you soon.